Object permanence. I was traveling from Cuba to Antigua recently, and while navigating the hellscape that is Miami Airport, rushing to make my connecting flight, I lost my grandmother's bracelet. It's actually two bracelets, of the silver bangle variety, but one got broken some years ago, and I've been wearing the intact one solo ever since. I came into possession of these bracelets when I was a child after my grandmother died. If you've read my first book, The Boy from Willow Bend, you have some notion of how her death impacted me. While the book is not autobiographical, Willow Bend's Vere's navigation of that trauma and the lingering grief is ripped from my life. Fictionalized. I've also shared how I carry Tanti, as we call my grandmother, with me. One physical manifestation of this is the bracelets, or the one bracelet now that I wear always. At school, where we weren't allowed to wear jewelry of any kind, I slipped them off at the school gate and into the side pocket of my pleated jumper, where I could touch them any time I wanted before entering the yard and lining up with the other girls for assembly. Of course, the airport strip, let me feel you up short at TSA has been part of the inconvenience of travel for 23 years. Off with the shoes, off with the belt, the earrings, the bracelets. Now step into the scanner and let me look at your body one time. Can I pat you down? Okay, turn around. This time, while redressing in line at the gate to get onto the plane, I realized Tanti's single remaining intact bracelet was missing. There was no time, no way to get it back. I stood in line trying to accept the reality that the bracelet was gone, and I just couldn't. Emotion rocked my body. Tears leaked from my eyes. As she was scanning my passport, I told the gate agent that I had lost something during the scan and asked if I could go back. She said, "You have 17 minutes." I dashed back toward TSA and zipped through the do not enter door and looked for and found a worker standing at the end of the conveyor repacking the trays. She was a black woman. That seems important to me in retrospect. And I said to her, "Can you help me? I've lost my grandmother's bracelet." I don't know what emotion she saw on my body and face, or heard in my voice, or maybe in the way I phrased it. My grandmother's bracelet communicating an emotional attachment to the missing object that she understood, but she tried to help me. In my experience, this is unusual in airports, American airports especially, and especially at TSA. She looked in what I imagine is their lost and found, and then tried to retrace my path while I spun around uselessly. Then I saw it on the dirty floor across the way, its silver dull against the gray floor. I'm a Catholic raised girl. I'm supposed to believe in miracles. If I didn't before, that moment made a believer out of me. I grabbed the bracelet off the floor and called out my thanks as I dashed back to the gate. I made my flight. Prayers up. On the page, as in life, people, characters have things that mean something to them, that come to symbolize things in the greater context of the story. For me, the key is not to force it, what a character's thing is, but to discover it over the course of revisions. For Gladstone and Corinne, who had sparred many evenings between their two huts with their mostly deflated ball, it was like play. Corinne even started styling off the way she did, twisting at the hip to tap the ball with her outer heel instead of her inner foot. In Freedom Cup, she might be little, but she was big enough to know that a ball didn't want anything. It's a ball. It's body ball, Atik said, bouncing the ball, which had more ear than on his knee, then his shin, then with a leg twist his calf, then catching it in the hinge between his foot and leg, holding it there, then bouncing it once, and without warning, kicking it to Corinne, who angled her body so that it bounced off her stomach, then bounced on her leg, where she kept it bouncing, with a big grin on her face. First time she ever managed to catch and bounce. The ball is a part of you, her father said. It wants what you want. You can keep it up forever, if you remember that. She wasn't able to keep it up forever, as Cora called them in for dinner soon after, but she kept that ball bouncing for a good long time. No surprise that the ball became Corinne's object. It's not just about skill, though she is quite skilled with the ball. It is also, I can see now, also representative of home and family. Her skill with it becomes the thing that could give her her freedom, taking her away from home and family. More than a plot device, it is as much a part of her identity as my Tante's bracelets have become for me. This is true too for Charlotte in my mother's bracelets. That I'm writing about this on Mother's Day is unintentional but serendipitous. The story begins with a crime and the bracelets. My mother's silver bracelets have been my most precious possession since the day I stole them. The story continues with a crime and the bracelets. The flash of silver just before the officer slipped on the handcuffs reminded me of my mother's bracelets. Unremarkable bracelets, the kind poor people own so they can own something nice. I've worn them since I was a child. These simple silver bangle bracelets were coveted once upon a time, and not just in Antigua and Barbuda. References, smatterings really, I found while writing this, broadly refer to the traditional West Indian bracelets, and to silver bracelets being worn for protection or status, handcrafted and molded silver, as they still are by the likes of Baileys in Antigua, or ceremony, a birth, for instance, as they were reportedly often gifted to children. They were a Christmas gift from the Pereiras, the Portuguese merchant family Mommy cooked for. My mother used to recite, and like a recitation, it got stuck in my head. They were jewelers, so it was fine work, as if that could make up for that job that took her life early. Day in, day out, bent over the big pot in their brick fireplace. No other house I knew had a fireplace like that. Mommy took a kind of pride in it. Better than coal pot, she used to say. I don't know about that. Heat is heat, but she was proud to be the first in our family to leave the cane field. Cane field. Cane and cotton was black people work them time. These bracelets made her feel special. Being a stay-at-home mom in a world where women, like her mother, broke their back working for others made my mother feel special. She never took those bracelets off, even when they didn't match. For Charlotte, they became a talisman of sorts through life's key moments, including childbirth and surgery. I only discovered after the pain had dulled to a sharp pull if I moved without thinking that the bracelets had turned black while in Capheus's care. Black, black, just so. I should have read the sign. It also makes for moments of bonding. Example with the nurse, whose home remedies helped her get the shine back after childbirth and surgery. The bonding, like with me and the TSA agent who probably promptly forgot me, speaks of the power of these objects when we find them. My wrist was still bare. I'd scrubbed and scrubbed, but could still feel the touch of the shackles. Though I'd stolen them in the first place, I didn't feel worthy of my mother's bracelets. Of course, it's not about the object, is it? In Charlotte's case, it's about the daughter she will never get to be for her mother, and about whatever glow remains of that relationship that never got the chance to fully mature. I remembered my mother making Milo for me, just so when I was a child. Afterwards, if it was too hot, and it always was, she would pour the brown liquid from cup to cup to cool it down. Big arching motions that made her bracelets jiggle. There was froth on the surface of the warm tea when she was done that made it taste like a treat. And in the end, in some way, shape, or form, they are a reflection of the self. Characters are not at all different from us when it comes to that. When sometime later the belly disappeared, like something sharp had pricked the balloon, and nobody said where the baby was, and her mother looked sad for a long, long time, Becca knew better than to ask. Her father packed up the maternity dresses and unopened baby things into two cardboard boxes while her mother lay in bed, and stared at the back wall. The boxes sat by the front door until one day Becca came home from school and they weren't there. Becca sometimes crawled in alongside her mother, staying when she wasn't shooed away. Sometimes she curled up in a corner with her crayons, and when she ran out of blank paper, got into trouble with teacher for drawing in her homework book. Her father always made sure she had drawing paper after that. That's from The Girl Who Draws on Walls, where we have a girl, Becca, whose mother is dying. Becca and Charlotte are almost the inverse of each other in that part of what Charlotte will forever miss is the connection she was never able to forge with her mother, while Becca is learning to let go of the mother whose embrace of her weirdness made her feel a little less weird herself. When she draws her mother, her hand instinctively reaches for red, and colors like that, as if her mother is a fireball or lava, something dangerous. Red scratches across the page, a fury of red. Sometimes she presses so hard on the crayon, the page tears a little, and that seems right too. Becca's object is a drawing pad, any blank surface, and coloring pencil, anything to draw with. It is the bane of her existence that her efforts to draw her world are constantly misunderstood. Relatable. It's a lonely road life has carved for you, Nella says. No one will ever really truly understand you, and you'll keep painting and painting, trying to get through to them. You'll fail. You'll be alone. It's good you start getting used to it. Becca keeps trying to connect, and it is an object in the end, an art object, that aids her in doing so. The object at play in Omari, a haunting, is unclear, as the baby, the titular Omari, is the only one who can see it. His fascination with a particular corner of the house is driving his mother, Mathilda, mad, mostly because she's the only one who seems concerned. She pointed it out to Sam, and he didn't seem to think it was a big deal. Woman, why are you always looking for problems? Something not right. Like what? She was afraid to say it. Could someone have put Obia on her one child to drive her mad? Of course, it's not just about the corner. Now, to Matilda, the house felt like it was attacking her through the baby. The house is the object, and that in itself is a symbol of other things. Three-bedroom, open design, end-to-end back porch, and sprawling yard. Having grown up with this aunt and that godmother, now and again separated from her sister, always crowded by family, she remembered a silver metal thing from when she was little at church, the way the priest would dip it and then throw, the water landing heavy and full like raindrops as he moved through the aisles, his lavishly embroidered robe swishing around about his ankles. Why had ceremony become so ordinary? There were other protections she tries to procure for Mary. Ma Pompey gave her a pouch, told her to tie it to Mary's chest until the leaves inside lost their scent. There were other objects, like the frying pan. Long story. Read Omari when, if the book, my short story collection in progress, comes out. You'll wonder, as I've done through each revision of Omari, if it's the house self that's haunted or is something else broken. The paranormal possibilities are what first drew me to the story. But as with objects representing other things, horror is a genre in which the horror often represents something else. So it makes sense that as I revised, the horror emerged as a portent of the mistrust and lack of harmony in Matilda and Sam's relationship. His dismissal of her concerns, her suspicions, possible postpartum. This is one of those stories I've enjoyed playing with, finding the balance between what is and what may be. And it all started with the corner of a house they owned due to someone else's misfortune. Object is not, for me, intended just as a narrative plot point, a MacGuffin. It also helps anchor the story. It is the magnet pulling me back to the point, like turtles returning home to nest at the site of their birth. As my characters struggle to understand themselves at this point in their journey, it is their North Star, whether they understand that or not. I mean, I'm writing the story, and it's something I am discovering after multiple passes, including one story, Nevis at Sunset, that was on the chopping block, but may now not be. In Nevis at sunset, I suppose the objects are the communication devices that facilitate unexpected connections, or as the case may be, reconnections. She and Rashid had kind of danced around each other back in the day, a little too much waltzing, not enough whining, as it turned out. Before she knew it, she was back in Antigua, and had fallen out of touch. When his request to connect showed up a few weeks ago, she'd accepted it automatically after checking his profile picture and seeing a grayer, more grizzled version of the boy he had once been. A messy, middle-aged Caribbean rom-com ish. We don't have enough of those, and that's why I might keep it. A story whose inclusion has never been in doubt, meanwhile, is The Fire, which begins with a house fire. He was naked as a barn, she was in a white nightie, and the house was on fire. Still, a small patch of skin that was by turns irritated and numb was a small price to pay for his life, and that's what Evie had meant to take after all when she doused him in kerosene and lit a match while he slept. Like joints alerting someone that we're out, as we say, as someone surely said in Antigua this past week at time of writing between the flash flooding quake and waterspouts, the proud flesh on Russell's ankle alerts him of danger. The story is experienced from his unreliable point of view, but she, Evie, is there the whole time. Her story revealed in his blind spots, because it does feel sometimes like that's where we exist as women. To feel her that whole time was part of my challenge for myself writing The Fire. With several of these stories as shown, there is also the suggestion of the supernatural and the superstitious and the ambiguity we have with regard to this in the Caribbean, with the fire and Omari perhaps most twin-like in this regard, the house, the cleansing, etc. In these and other stories in this collection, you'll find references to other objects or characters, if you prefer, of Caribbean lore, Jumbies, Sukiya, etc. Luna wishes she was tall, tall as a silk cotton tree, or tall and agile enough to climb up one and rest there, maybe see far, far to where she was supposed to go. But even if she saw one, she'd be too scared to climb it. Mommy used to say Jumbies lived there, but not all Jumbies bad. Some are ancestors hanging round to keep an eye on things. Because these characters inhabit a version of the world as I know it, even if it's a world gone to shit as in the event quoted above, they reach for objects that help shape me, including a pair of silver bracelets. I always believe that experience matters more than things, but there's no denying that the things we value, we do usually because they resonate emotionally. To extrapolate meaning from the objects that have some place of significance in my characters' lives, I have found to be part of the work of understanding character and shaping story.